And I'm looking at number 43. If the diameter of the sun is about 400 times the diameter of the Earth, which of the following is the best approximation for the ratio of the volume of the sun to the volume of the Earth? This is a volume problem. So let's recall the volume formula. To get volume for a sphere, change this to black, to another pen, is 4/3 pi r cubed. If you have trouble remembering that, think of the area of a circle, which is pi r squared. So to get a volume, it's three-dimensional, so it's not pi r squared, it's pi r cubed. And the 4/3, best way to remember that is if you think of pi as 3.14, so you need the 3/4 in there, and there's 4/3, so it's bigger than 1. That's how I remember it, but just use your own way. And we have ratio, so which means we have the ratio of Earth, the ratio of the volume of the sun to Earth, so we'll put the sun on top, 4/3 pi r cubed on top, and the Earth on the bottom, 4/3 pi r cubed on the bottom. And before we proceed, I hope you realize that you can cancel a lot of variables here. You can cancel this 4/3, this pi. So that really just becomes r cubed divided by r cubed. As long as we know that, we're good. And do we know the radius? Not really, but we can come up with an easy number that will help us figure out that number. So let's use 1 for the ratio of the diameter of the Earth. If the diameter is 2, let's say the radius is 1. Okay. So the radius is 1 cubed, and in the top we have 100 because it's 100 times bigger, right? So it's 100 cubed. Let's simplify that. 100 times 100 times 100, that is 6 zeros. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros in there, divided over 1. So that's basically our answer. If we look at our answer choices, they're in powers of 10. So what's a million in terms of powers of 10? It's we need 10 to the power of 6, but if you forget that, think about this. 10 squared is just 100. We all remember that. 10 cubed is 1,000. 10 to the power of 4 is 10. 1, 2, 3, 1,000. So I hope you see that there's a pattern. For every nth power, you get another 0. By the time we're at 6, we have 6 zeros. That's how we get a million. The answer is C. So that's how we get that one. Now I can move on to 44. 44, a rectangular flat screen computer monitor has a diagonal that measures 20 inches. The ratio is 4:3. Interesting, I got 4/3 again. That's a coincidence. What's the perimeter of the screen in inches? I highly recommend drawing your shapes as soon as you can. We know the diagonal. It's going to be a nice line. Measures 20 inches. So that's 20 inches, which is phenomenal. 20 inches. We want to figure out the value of x and y because we wanted the perimeter. Different perimeters, all sides added together. So we extract that triangle. That's 20, that's x, that's y. How can we make this happen? You know that's the right triangle. That helps. And you know that the ratio is 4:3, which means that they grow in that pattern, 4:3. Now, which one's 4 and which is 3? You can actually say if it's 4:3, this is say 4:3. So starting from the bottom, if it's 3, 4, I hope you recognize this as a Pythagorean triplet. 3, 4, 5 is a third triangle. Interesting, right? Because 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. That's your triangle that you should memorize. But we don't have 5, we have 20. Sorry. So how do we get to 20? How does 5 become 20? Multiply by 4. So which means we gotta multiply all other numbers by 4 to keep this proportion. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16. Ha, there you go. X equals 16, y equals 12. Do some math. 16 plus 16 plus 12 plus 12, and it's 56. Please your answer. Now we have a circular pizza with a 16-inch diameter is cut into 12 equal slices. What's the area? Shapes, right? So let's have a nice pizza, this nice circle here. Move it here. That's why I want to move it. Hopefully I find a whiteboard I can move this thing. Okay. Let's write as much as we know about this. This pizza has 16-inch diameter. So here is 16. We're talking about area. Area is always pi r squared. So area equals pi 8 squared. So the area is 64 pi. Always keep your answers in terms of pi. And if area equals 64 pi, interestingly enough, all we care about is dividing that by 12. 64 pi divided by 12. We want to reduce. In math, we always like to reduce. What's the biggest number that goes into 64 and 12? I'm thinking 4. Because I'm looking at 12. The biggest number that goes into 12 is 4. Does 4 go into 64? Yeah, because 8 goes into 64, right? 8 squared is 64. And if 8 goes in there, 4 goes in there. So 4 goes into 12 3 times, and 4 goes into 64. 64 divided by 8, 4, 16 times, 16 pi, and the answer, there you go, is 16 is A. Awesome. Last but very not least, a square has a square has a square tablecloth lies flat on the top of a circular table whose area is pi square feet. Stop right there. See if we can write that in, what's happening. We have a square tablecloth, so let's create a nice square. That's a square I can do. That's circumferenced. So that square is enclosed in the circle. Pay attention. The square itself has an area of pi feet. Now, if the four corners of the tablecloth just touch the edge of the table, what's the area of the tablecloth? So the our circle has pi feet, which means, again, if area equals pi r squared, and our area is just pi, and pi equals pi r squared, that means one way for this to work is if its radius is 1. So that means my radius is 1. And if my radius is 1, that's kind of awesome, because now that I know my radius is 1, which by the way is how you make a unit circle for trigonometry, to figure out all your trig functions and values. But now that we know that is 1, all you really have to do is extract the square, make a triangle. You know the radius is 1, so the diameter is 2 because it's from corner to corner. Let's extract this triangle. We know the hypotenuse is 2, but what are these guys? It's a square, so this is an isosceles triangle. They're equal. Interestingly enough, these two angles are equal. And if you recall your special right triangle, they follow a very special relationship. If this side is x and that side is x, this side is x times radical 2. Interesting. That means my 2 equals x radical 2. Solve for x. What does x equal? Divide both sides by radical 2. X equals 2 divided by radical 2. You rationalize your denominator by multiplying both the top and the bottom by radical 2. The bottom you get 2 because radical 2 times radical 2 is 2. On the top you get 2 radical 2. You simplify. These two cancel out, right? The two they cancel out. So you're left with just radical 2. X equals radical 2. X equals radical 2. Another color. X equals radical 2. Which is amazing because now we know that the square that we have in question, each side is radical 2. We want to know the area of the tablecloth. Well, what is radical 2 times radical 2? That's just 2, which is why the answer is 2.